Greetings to you, Crocodile Army. Are you ready for your Bill Gates COVID-19 vaccine microchip? If I hear one more nonsense conspiracy theory, I might just take any medication that promises to spare the world from these myths. While the protests have rightfully taken a big chunk of the news cycle away from the coverage of the pandemic, COVID is still here in the United States, and the second wave, or extended first wave, seems like it's here already. I am not surprised at all. Today's American population is uniquely ill-suited for the type of crisis that depends on personal sacrifice, cooperation, and leadership. Literally tens of millions of Americans believe COVID inconveniences are a gateway to a police state, and many conservative news outlets, as well as Trump himself, have been encouraging this type of thinking, along with encouraging protests in the last couple months in states with Democratic governors. This resulted in protests in Michigan and elsewhere with not very well regulated militias, we'll call them, storming government buildings in military gear. They demanded their freedom to get haircuts while millions cheered them on through social media. Police actually showed remarkable restraint during those protests. The conversations about COVID I've been having for months are pretty fascinating against the backdrop of the Black Lives Matter protests. The very value of life and death is completely dependent on your politics. For months, as the COVID death toll went from hundreds to thousands, and now over 120,000 dead Americans, there was a steady drumbeat from the right that the economy being closed was the real public health threat. People need to get back to work, and just think of the people losing their businesses, they said. 120,000 is a lot of people, sure, but think of the hundreds who may have committed suicide or died of preventable illness, they say. Well, to be clear, of course that's sad. None of us wanted this to happen. One of my favorite restaurants closed permanently last month, but compared to the death toll from COVID, the economy had to take a back seat for a little while. We averaged less than one death per day in 3 weeks related to the protests, and about 1,300 deaths per day from COVID in the last 3 months. Oh, but look at those protesters not social distancing, you say. Yes, protesting comes with some risk. However, being an outdoor activity that is being done mostly by people who actually wear masks and don't think wearing them makes them look weak provides a lot of protection. Some armchair communicable disease specialists think that masks do nothing, but a peer-reviewed study from the University of Iowa published just this week in Health Affairs Journal shows a very big difference in the spread of COVID based on mandatory mask use in public. Anyone who has been following recent trends can see that the South is seeing a spike in cases, and I would gladly go to 5 protests masked right now than go to one bar in Florida or Texas or Arizona for one evening without a mask. For some good wholesome entertainment though, search for videos of Karens flipping out over having to wear a mask. Apologies to those actually named Karen. The meme lords will give your name back eventually. Maybe. Handling a crisis requires accurate information and action on that information. At the beginning of the outbreak, things moved very quickly. There were missteps on more than one level of government, and by some in both parties. Trump certainly said really stupid things to make it seem like it was nothing, and he definitely bears significant responsibility. However, around the time everything shut down in mid-March, he seemed to be taking it seriously, and I could have partially forgiven him for his ridiculous initial statements. Most Americans were united that COVID-19 was serious, and Trump's approval ratings rose to around 45%, which was one of the highest numbers he's ever had. Of course, within a week or two, it became the usual lurching from one crisis to another, and I think we all know the rest. Leadership is important. Jair Bolsonaro, the president of Brazil, sometimes referred to as the tropical Trump, keeps saying that COVID is nothing. Take a look at their case counts now. It's almost like he saw America's numbers and said, hey, I can do better than that, hold my caipirinha. Though I can already feel my brain melting just thinking about it, the conspiracy theories I mentioned at the beginning are out of control. There's the one about 5G activating the virus, which is just an add-on to the 5G conspiracy nonsense that already existed pre-COVID. Then there was the Chinese bioweapon on purpose theory, where they released it but supposedly had the cure, even though they already have a second wave of COVID now. Then there's the accidental release of the bioweapon theory. Then there's the theory that Bill Gates doesn't have enough money, so he needs to make money off a vaccine for COVID. And in some versions, he also implants microchips to track people, because your phones don't apparently do that well enough already. And in other versions, he also needs to get the world population down to 500 million, because the NWO demands it. Oh, and don't forget, COVID is no worse than the flu, even though we lost 3 times as many people to it than the flu every year in 3 months with the entire country shut down. Several of these conspiracy theories are mutually exclusive, so I'm going to have to ask you conspiracy theorists to put all of your considerable brain power together to agree on one unifying conspiracy, and get back to me when you figure it out. I'll wait. Meanwhile, I get to wear my cool-looking masks.